This inductee is renowned not only for his work in neuroendocrinology, but for his ability to promote collaboration in building and expanding medical education and institutional science foundations in the United States and Canada. Dr. Joseph Martin.
I was born in a farm family in the middle of the prairies, not far from Calgary, Alberta. My ambitions to be a doctor really arose in the earliest memories that I can recall, walking across the field and thinking that I'd like to go to Africa, I'd like to go to India, I'd like to go to China and do healthcare missionary work.
He began his professional career at McGill, ultimately rising to become chair of neurology and neurosurgery.
My interests were in how the brain regulates the pituitary gland, and so-called neuroendocrinology. And McGill was a major strength in that area with a lot of faculty who were working in that zone.
After a very successful career there, he moved to become the chair of neurology at the Massachusetts General Hospital.
The signal accomplishment of Joe Martin as the chairman of neurology at the Mass General Hospital over many years was to put together the renowned Huntington's Disease Center Without Walls.
Dr. Martin had the vision to build the preeminent program in neurogenetics. He realized, seemingly before anyone else, that this is where the major advances in neurology were going to happen.
The work of the center in the success of its application was to bring these people together in one team. BU, MIT, Mass General, Harvard.
It is through his vision that some remarkable scientists and clinicians under his guidance went on to make landmark after landmark discovery in genetics, the genes for Alzheimer's disease, Huntington's disease, motor neuron disease.
And then later, he moved to become the dean of the University of California at San Francisco, where again he was remarkably successful and went on to become chancellor of the UCSF health system.
When I was a student at UCSF, I became aware of the work that he had done as chancellor to help expand the campus. And I think UCSF really became, during those years, a world-class institution for medical care and biomedical research.
We were then very privileged to be able to recruit him back to Harvard Medical School. Under Dean Martin's leadership, the medical school flourished. It opened its most important building in 2003.
He co-founded the Harvard Center for Neurodegeneration and Repair. It's now known as the Harvard Neurodiscovery Center.
He initiated the Department of Systems Biology, one of the first in the country, clearly a visionary thinker about the future at the interface of biocomputation and biomedicine.
Joe has done it all. He has been a premier leader, not just in his field of neuroscience, but way beyond that in biomedicine writ large.
He also initiated the Dana-Farber Harvard Cancer Center, which is a remarkable association of 7 different institutions that, in its entirety, is the country's largest comprehensive cancer center.
He's published hundreds of papers. He was the editor of Harrison's Principles of Internal Medicine, the section on neurology, an incredibly impactful medical textbook that's read all over the world.
He really put his fingerprints on Harvard Medical School in part by, I think, fostering a sense of integrity and honesty in the way people talk to each other.
I worked together with the community to establish the Alberta Heritage Fund for Medical Research and served on the scientific advisory committee of that for the next 10, 15 years. And we had a major project in Ontario where interest was evolving to bring together the medical schools around brain research.
Canada should be justly proud of this native son who has done so much to advance education, research, and understanding and treatment of neurologic disease.
My wife, Rachel, she's been absolutely the treasure of my entire life. The one who not only was a mother to my wonderful 4 children, but her support and willingness to go along with all these zigs and zags that were part of our life was just critical to everything that I've been able to do.
Canadian Medical Hall of Fame laureate, Dr. Joseph Martin.
Well, I must say that this great honor came to me as a complete surprise. Having spent most of the last 45 years in the United States, I wasn't sure that I was eligible for an award of this incredible importance within the Academy of Canada. But my roots are deep in Canada, and over the years, I frequently visited family in Alberta. My mother lived to be 99 and died just a short time ago. And I frequently visited with colleagues at many different locations across the country. I want to mention a few of the people who really were important in my time in Canada and how those relationships continued on. I'd like to start with the medical school in Edmonton, which was for me an extraordinary education. I still remember lectures from medical school, graduated in 1962. I remember professors who were there giving the lectures, not just assigning them to teaching assistants. And when I graduated, a very dear friend, Dr. Lionel McLeod, encouraged me to pursue my interest in neurology and to think about academic medicine. He was later dean at the University of Calgary and then became the head of the Alberta Foundation for Medical Research, the Alberta Heritage Foundation for Medical Research. And it was through him that I had the privilege to meet Dr. Peter Lougheed, Premier of Alberta, who came to Boston, told me about his vision of establishing a major new research enterprise. And the result of that was to produce at the two universities, the University of Alberta and the University of Calgary, an unbelievably strong network of clinician, teacher, and investigators. And I think Alberta deserves to remember that remarkable contribution. My first job was at McGill, and that was the result of Dr. Don Baxter, who recruited me there. I was 15 years after high school, and my mother really worried that I'd never get a real job. McGill turned out to be fantastic. I met people there, collaborated with people like Henry Friesen and John Dirks, enjoyed participating in a number of activities that related directly to the broad mission of teaching and research in a superb university medical school. Later, I was involved with Charlie Hollenberg and John Dirks as a member of the Gardner Foundation Review Committee. I was involved as well, as was mentioned, with Joe Rotman, a wonderful businessman from Toronto who came down to Boston to see me about his vision for establishing a collaboration across all the medical schools in Ontario to form the Ontario Brain Institute, which we put together in 2011. And it has become a terrific vehicle to bring together collaborations in neuroscience, particularly in relation to the disorders like autism, schizophrenia, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease. It was during the time that Henry Friesen was head of the Medical Research Council of Canada that he led, and I was privileged to watch his wonderful leadership there in establishing the Canadian Institutes of Health Research, which broadened the spectrum of Canadian research beyond just medical research to health policy and to health coverage. And I could go on and on. I remember so vividly the many trips back there, the University of British Columbia. I wish we could be there. We were supposed to be a year ago. I have great friends there, Michael Hayden, who was awarded this honor a few years ago, and on and on. So I'd like to conclude by just saying how grateful I am to my wife, Rachel, to my children, each of whom was born in a different city as we traveled around through the US and Canada, and to 10 wonderful grandchildren, all of whom now are living within a short distance from our house here in Brookline. So I thank you all for this opportunity. I'm sorry that we're not together, but I hope that in one of the future meetings I'll be able to join with you. Thank you very much.